We are live on a Thursday morning in Australia. Good morning. It is so lovely to be here. Welcome, Marti, and welcome, Steve. We are
Thank you.
here yet again for another amazing conversation for our LinkedIn Lives. How are you?
Doing good. Good to see you, Steve. Always good to be with you.
Yeah, same here. We were just talking before we came online that I've been outside in the environment getting unstuck. So the disciple is following the Yoda. I don't know if that's the right analogy or not.
And if you've
Yeah.
listened to any of our LinkedIn Lives, you'll know what that means about the going outside. And if you don't, you need to go back and watch the replays. We're gonna talk for 30 minutes sharp, so we keep these nice and short and sharp. And I'm your host, Aveline Clark, for those of you who don't know me, if you're new to watching this. So in these sessions, this is we're bringing I don't know, how do I say this, Marti? It's kind of like the practice, the spiritual or the indigenous wisdom from the elders. We're bringing it into everyday life.
Yeah, we can say that. One of the things that I'm really focused on is getting it out of the up in the sky spiritual realm, because what we're really talking about are deep principles of consciousness that build cultures, let alone businesses. So we're trying to bring it down to the ground.
Nice.
And
I love that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Love, love, love. So our topic today, so basically Steve is the disciple or the student, and he asks Marti the layman's questions and tries out the things that she shares with him around these principles of, deeper consciousness and awareness that we can bring into everyday life. So that's what we're doing. We're bringing these principles into everyday life, focusing on business because we're all in business. And our topic today is around judgment, as in how we naturally tend to judge and how we can let go of that. But I'm going to let the Yoda and the student talk this out, and I will see you at the end.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. So Marti, we judgment. You said that before we came on that it was almost like people turning up without an agenda and let's put it into the business context, right? So as people going into conversations, whether it's with staff members, whether it's with suppliers, whether it's with customers, I was taught in a sales environment is that you always set an agenda with somebody to know, give you a framework on which to have a conversation with somebody so that you're on point. What do you want to get out of this? What time frame do we have? So there's this sort of a, not to mix metaphors, but there's a sandpit in which we're going to play in, and then we don't want to go outside that sandpit for this conversation.
Yeah.
So that's an objective. I don't think it doesn't work. It gives people context at least. But what's your thought? Well, what does then the bringing your thoughts into doing things differently, which is what the Six-Star Business is all about? How do we then approach this concept?
Yeah. As usual, you and I have bitten off a big piece here, and we'll see what we can do in 30 minutes with it. If we talk about setting an agenda for a meeting, that's one thing. Yes, there should be, in the technologies of consciousness, we would call it a map or a vision for the meeting. In Western consciousness, it's a A to B to C, and we better get to the last point or else we'll have to have another meeting. So even if we're just talking about setting an agenda, which yes, you should do because it makes it more efficient, in full consciousness, I'm using that term a little bit loosely, we would set a map for the meeting and moment to moment be negotiable about which point on the map we're working, because our experience at whatever point we start with is going to guide us to the next most effective, efficient point on the map. So we don't preset necessarily the order of events, but we do have a map, we do have a vision that we're calling in to what we're experiencing, and our experience evolves, the map evolves, and whatever we're creating happens in the space between. So they're setting an agenda for a meeting, and that's perfectly fine. But what happens in Western consciousness, and again, what I'm about to say is very big, so pick up what you can. In general, in Western consciousness, our awareness is working in a part of our brain that processes information in a linear fashion. It's processed to go from A to B to C. It's not processed to do A prime, B, D prime all together. It's just get me from A to B. That's how we look at the world. And it's using a map that we have made in our very big, beautiful imagination and relational intelligence. But if I'm only awake in that linear part, that's my world, A to B to C. And I have to get there because there are biological survival drives underneath that getting from A to B. So if I'm in that linear consciousness and I don't realize it, I'm going to set a quote unquote agenda for the meeting that's probably going to be full of attachments and judgments and have tos and cannots. And if I don't get my way in the meeting, I'm going to be pretty upset and I won't really understand why. So we're not getting rid of planning meetings, but what we're talking about, Steve, it's like you were saying how much time you've been spending in nature. The whole idea with that is to get yourself a download, get information from something you can't think up ahead of time. Be in an experience, in a dialogue with something bigger that can give you information that you can create with. That's really how it works, right? So we're talking about coming into that meeting. Yes, we've got a map, but we're talking about coming into that meeting in the same way, being able to receive information that is not about us, being able to receive information from, I'm going to use this again loosely, larger powers that we're connected to. The more you get used to being in relational intelligence instead of that little linear piece, the more you're used to receiving things that come into your awareness. We call them downloads in the biz, right? You're more accustomed to receiving downloads and trusting what you get and putting them forward as ideas without attachment to outcome. You're more negotiable. That's another word that we use. But this negotiability, it takes some training. I think one thing that modern people have to realize is we're not born knowing how to be fully conscious. We are not. Yep. When we're infants, we're more conscious usually than we are as adults because we aren't using language yet. But what happens with humans is when we learn to speak and we learn what thinking is all about, we actually shift our awareness from the faster part of our creative minds to the slower part that uses language. And if there aren't any elders around to keep us going out into nature, we'll just drift into that linear part and get stuck there. Kind of like an old alligator stuck in the mud in the bottom of the stream. And we're in danger of living our lives down there. And it can be pretty difficult to uproot ourselves and remember how to be relational and creative. But that's that's like an opening statement about agenda, having an agenda, a map versus being stuck to, attached to an agenda that's based on judging, are other people agreeing with me or not, are other people right or wrong. And the more we get into those judgments and measuring how much good enough, et cetera, the more we're in only that linear part.
So it seems to me that what we're asking in this, or how we're looking to behave whilst we're being like this, is a lot more patience in the process. So, you know, if you're in a meeting or you're going into a meeting and you have an agenda, you're wanting an outcome because there is there's in the business sense, right? There's if you're working for corporate, there's a pressure on you to make a decision and have an outcome to move forward. Otherwise, it's deemed as procrastination or indecisiveness. You get judged then on that performance. Mm-hmm. So you actually have to start making, insert owning your own business to corporate, making decisions in families and all those sorts of things. The big decisions I'm talking about. So there's that tension, isn't there, between the vision, which is I've got to look for. The reason I'm having this conversation in this meeting or with this agenda is that I'm looking for an outcome. The outcome's not coming from the meeting, so we force onto the meeting an outcome because we need to move forward, but that may not necessarily be the right outcome for that, or is it? So there's this tension then between having to make a decision and moving forward versus having another meeting because we didn't get the outcome that we were looking for and waiting for that download. So that seems to me like a Western construct that we've just bought into, but that's the environment that we've created. Mm-hmm. So as business owners, how do we reconcile that amongst ourselves so that we can then create that environment where we're not feeling the pressure of having to make decisions with an agenda, and that we then start to internalize the conversations to be able to be satisfied that the direction that we're going is the right direction.
Yeah. Well, in a way, I always tell people consciousness is very simple, but in the Western world, what happens is that we're mixing a two-dimensional experience with a multi-dimensional experience. And when I train people, I tell them that when they go into a business situation, and I mostly train business advisors, they have to learn to recognize the people who are still in Western style consciousness, which is pretty much two-dimensional, and the people who are a little bit more open and might see a third or fourth dimension of what you're bringing and advising. And in some situations, it's the bigger organization is in that Western style consciousness, and it's just driving itself from A to B to C, A to B to C, A to B to C. Don't step off the road. Don't even look at the landscape. And if the larger organization is set in that, then you kind of have a problem. So I have like 2 days of information to say in a couple of sentences here. So first of all, I want to put forward something that I think will be useful for everybody. And this is from Indigenous cultures, and it's the version that Angeles Arian used to teach people. She was a wonderful Indigenous cross-cultural mentor herself. And what I'm about to share is a 5-step process of negotiation that is actually taught in diplomatic schools, but it comes from Indigenous cultures. And just imagine yourself in one of those meetings where everybody is very linear and hell-bent to get from A to B to C. Imagine this, that you have a big idea and you want to present something and everybody's meeting there to talk about it. The first thing you do is that you say what you notice about the situation, the business situation. Let's say you're an advisor, so you have position to say that. Say what you notice, say how you feel about it, which means as an advisor, now you start to share your wisdom about whether the situation is workable or not. There might be something else that could be added. So what you notice, how you feel about it. Number 3, the instruction is what you're willing to do. And as an advisor in a meeting, you can say, I would be willing to bring into this situation a set of skills, a new dimension, whatever your job really is, whatever your skill really is, you'd be willing to bring that into the situation because it would help. Then you say, Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Let me go through this again. What you notice, how you feel about it, what you want. What you want. So as an advisor, if I'm in this situation, I would say what I really want is I want you, my client, to blossom. I want this project to do what you're saying. And what I want is to introduce to you something that only I as an advisor can bring to you, something like that. Then you have to say what you're willing to do. So if there are compromises that you're willing to bring to the situation, you have to say that. If there's an extra piece of something you want to gift a client, you have to say that. What are you actually willing to do to bring the project to fulfillment, to get the meeting to its goal? But the fifth thing you have to say is what you're not willing to do. What you notice, how you feel about it, what you want, what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do. And this needs to be tailored to our business situation. So I just use an example as an advisor. I can use that map of negotiation to crack open a conversation, to crack open ideas. And I can say, what I want is to introduce this totally new idea. Will you listen? And there's that patience that you mentioned. People have to say yes or no to that, right? And what I'm willing to do would be, here's what we need to do to implement this new idea, and I'm willing to do XYZ for you. But as an advisor, sometimes I have said, I am not willing to proceed with you on this other path because it's not going to get you where you want to go.
So can I shift it? So rather than it being an advisor to a business, it being the business owner themselves. So in a lot of situations, the business owner sees themselves as the center of the business, the hub of the business. And we all, we've been talking for decades about you need to let go of the business, let go of controlling the business, not let go of control, but let go of controlling the business. And there is where there is that, we talk now about the safe space of business, which is, for me, it's, you trust the people who are working for you and they trust you because of behavior. So someone who's not used to being in that situation, so they're not enlightened. I don't want to use the word in a derogatory sense, but they just haven't had the experience yet.
Right.
Of they've been running their business in a particular way. It's served them well. They've got their success based on that, but they may not necessarily be happy with that, or people may not be happy with how they're losing staff, or they're not able to attract staff, etc. So, they're starting from a relatively low base on which. So for me, that what you're talking about, it makes natural sense, right? But for someone who isn't experienced in this then creates a situation where potentially their authority might be challenged because you're asking staff. Right, so this is we're going into a meeting with our staff. We're deciding on something, and we're giving the staff the permission to go through this list of exchange. Right, so how I feel. What is it? It's what have I noticed? How do I feel? What do I want? What am I willing to do, and what I'm not willing to do? So how would a business owner change their current philosophy of do as I say, not as I, all that sort of stuff, to one of more inclusivity, so that it then starts to create an environment of trust for their people, so that when their people do say, I'm not prepared to do this, there isn't a consequence, a negative consequence for that.
Yeah. Well, what comes to me I'm trying to stay general because these are very contextual, and each business there'd be a slightly more unique answer. But one of the things about consciousness is that meaning and value need to be constantly created and renewed. And as consciousness, imagine the universe is a conscious thing, and it's got this big flow of energy and information, and it's creating planets and worlds and people and cats and dogs and everything. As that consciousness is flowing and creating life, it's flowing into a current context and constantly creating new stuff. And with that comes what we call new meaning, and with that new meaning comes new value. So the first thing I would do if I'm a business owner, my business is in trouble, and somebody says, well, get input from your staff. The first thing I would do is sit down with the staff and redefine roles. I would go in and be in control, if you will, be in charge of creating new meaning. And I would make very, very clear the empowerment that the employee has, the empowerment that the owner has. I would make clear the roles and how each role contributes to the business. Because if you just go in and try this out, you're at risk of an emotional war. And so I would do some education first about what the business really is. You know, speaking of downloads, I got a download years ago about what a business actually is in terms of consciousness. And a business is a node of consciousness that exists for the creation, exchange, and distribution of value. And in our brains, value is assigned according to what something means in a context. So in my business, before I go asking the employees for input, I want to know in my own heart, what's the context of my business? What does it mean to me? Why am I here? And then I want to talk to my staff about it and say, we need to do some review, but I want to share some things with you and teach you some things about how I see the business. This is our context. This is what has meaning for me. This is why I'm here. Yeah, this is what this business means to me, and what you people, my staff, mean to me. And I would make that clear. And then I would say, let's talk about how to improve it. I wouldn't ask for what's wrong. I would ask for improvement. Western consciousness is always going to what's wrong and what's missing and what cannot be done and what was not done. And wherever you put your awareness, that's what you get. So if you're looking for improvement, ask for improvement, ask for good ideas, ask for an amplification of what does work. And in that, you'll get a stream of new ideas that will amplify the business and amplify everyone's worth in the business.
We come so it's almost, I don't know which conversation we had, but whether it was in this forum or whether it was in the 6-Star Business Forum, but we spoke about money is at the core of business. Without money, the business doesn't exist. But money as a purpose or a meaning is, I want to say, superficial. It doesn't, it's hard to wake up in the morning and go to work to make more money. But if you don't, it's funny, if you don't have the money, that's your focus. If you do have the money, you're looking for meaning. So
I would say, well, that's a complicated thing. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, yeah. No, that was the question. I'm waiting for an answer.
Oh, that was the question. Oh, okay. Well, what I meant was that money is an exchange medium. And if you remember my download about business, that the mode of consciousness that exists for the creation, exchange, and distribution of value. And the value we give out as a business isn't just money. It's not just about money. And we're kind of remembering that because now we think about service and we think about the climate and the planet and all that stuff. But there needs to be an exchange medium, and we haven't yet reached that level of life that they found in Star Trek, where nobody needs money anymore. It's an exchange medium. And to say, oh, I don't need money, I don't like money, well, that's like telling yourself you don't need food. But to just go after nothing but money, you're no more conscious than the person who's refusing it. So I think we have to revisit what money means to us. And my vision would be that everybody understands it's an exchange medium. And the more you have, the more you can exchange. So it's not a bad thing to have. It is a bad thing to hoard. I think the Dalai Lama said that money's like blood, it needs to flow. And there's that apocryphal story about him planning a huge global conference, and somebody said, well, where's the money going to come from? And he said, well, wherever it is now. So, and, if we had a little bit more of that attitude, I think we could settle down about money. It does need to flow. We need it coming and going, so we can have these exchanges. And maybe someday we'll have a different exchange medium. Other cultures haven't used money. They've used other things, like it used to be in the Andes, your llama and alpaca herds were your wealth. That's what was exchanged. But I think that we get into a very kind of attached state of consciousness. This is where we're in that linear state where we start to judge and measure and worry about what isn't there. And then money becomes the subject of our scarcity worries. And then there's no value in that. That just drives us into scarcity, and we end up in fear and all those bad places. So I think that understanding meaning and value, understanding our context and what our business means to us and what it means to our clients and the value that we do create, it loosens us up inside ourselves, so we're more accepting of new ideas that can keep our business flowing. But if we get glommed onto, I have to make X amount of money, then our consciousness sort of sinks down into that two-dimensional realm where there's only measurement and judgment and am I there yet? And then money becomes a really hard thing. So, when we talk about our topic was supposed to be something like showing up with no agenda, which is such a big topic. But what we're really talking about is showing up in the moment, available to what is actually occurring. And instead of having to get from A to B on a tight little line, having in some larger domain of our consciousness a vision, a map of what we're creating, knowing that map is going to evolve. And we need to refer to the map, but be right here at ground level, creating stuff and paying attention to the exchange. I gave something out, did I get a multiplicity of return back? Because that's how consciousness works. Am I multiplying my positive effect? And if I pay attention to that, then I'm going to pay attention to meaning and value. I'm going to pay attention to the context that creates meaning. And if my business starts to mean something a little different to me, I'll know it and I'll adjust and evolve. But if I'm just trying to get from A to B to C, I'm going to lose that entire domain of experiential wisdom. And I'm going to get glued to, I'm not there yet. I'm going to get glued to scarcity and worry, and I won't be able to receive new ideas from anybody.
Marti, I think maybe I haven't been paying attention, or maybe this is the first time I've heard it from you. But this is the first time I've recognized what you just said in terms of the exchanges. What was the multiplier I got from my contribution?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have time for that now, but I wonder whether that concept of multiplier is the subject for the next.
Brilliant. Mm-hmm. Brilliant subject. Brilliant. Mm-hmm.
As always, my world is blessed by the student. I just feel like I should be paying for this, but everybody else is not paying, so I'm not going to pay, right?
You're paying with your presence.
I'm paying with my
and
presence.
your-
Yes.
Yes.
Again, I don't know whether. Look, I just hope. I hope that the audience is actually understands. Like I've gone back and started listening to these these recordings because I'm preparing something for the 6-star business in strategy. So I'm trying to get downloads and relearning or revisiting the subject. And I tell you what, it's brilliant, right? So I would encourage anyone who is listening to this or seeing this for the very first time, go back. I think they're all on YouTube except for episode 3 because we had a technical issue, but it's on LinkedIn on the links on the 6-star business, so you can listen to it there. I encourage everybody to do that because I think our meaning here is what we're trying to do is we're trying to get business owners to think differently, to think differently, to be 6-star, but 6-star, put whatever meaning you want on 6-star. But if you just want to improve and you're just looking for that edge on the competition, wow, no one's doing this. No, well, very few. Sorry, I didn't say no one. Very few people are actually coming into this space. It'll come because there is this wave, right? So everybody's talking about this 2027 wave that's gonna turn up, whatever that is, right? Maybe I'm reading too much into what I read on the internet.
Guys, thank you so much. We have kind of hit our time limit. And Marti, did you want to just sum up?
Yeah, I want to say just a couple of quick things. Number one, what we're talking about here is not globally available. These principles of consciousness are not widely known. They have been gifted to me from elders in a lot of different lineages, and I've been asked to pass them on. So there's a lot of stuff on the internet that isn't quite correct, but if you listen carefully to what Steve and I are talking about, this is the real deal. And what we are creating here, Steve, your curiosity and your openness to this is drawing through me things that I've never said before about business. This is the exchange that creates the multiplicity. And so for all 3 of us and for all of our listeners, we are creating a multiplicity of beneficial return. So this is how it happens. And I love that. Thank you, Steve, for encouraging people to listen to all these conversations.
Yes.
I just got goosebumps.
Great.
Thank you so much for another absolutely riveting, fascinating, and kind of one of those, I need to sit and process that kind of, conversations. So thank you both.
Go outside and process.
It's pouring rain, literally sideways raining outside. So
it's only water.
Yeah, it's only water, right? So next topic will be the multiplicity of the energy exchange. Yeah.
That's multiplicities of return.
I love that. There we go. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and I hope you've enjoyed this today. It's been great for us to share with you. So until then, have fun. And like Steve said, go back and watch any of the replays either on YouTube or on LinkedIn. Okay, take care.
Great.